Imagine opening a dusty old barn door and uncovering millions of dollars in forgotten metal. Rare Ferraris, Bugattis, and muscle cars left untouched for decades. Engines cold, but history blazing hot. These aren't just rusty relics, they're time capsules of automotive perfection. Some were hoarded, others hidden from war, theft, or taxes, but all of them were lost until someone found them. These are the most jaw-dropping barn finds in history, and the stories behind their miraculous discoveries. Somewhere between urban legends and automotive miracles lie the most captivating finds in car history: barn finds. The term has become almost mythical in the classical car world, evoking the romance of forgotten machines waiting to roar again. But what separates an ordinary barn find from an iconic one? Rarity, value, condition, and sometimes the drama behind why it was hidden at all. These are the most astonishing bar finds ever uncovered. Some were discovered by accident, others through years of relentless hunting, but all of them shocked the automotive world. The Baillon collection, the $20 million French treasure. In 2014, auction house Art Curial was invited to evaluate a private collection in Western France. What they found stunned even the most seasoned collectors. Inside crumbling barns and garages were 60 rare and classic cars, many untouched for 50 years. The star of the show? A 1961 Ferrari 250 GT SWB California Spider covered in dust, but otherwise intact. Just 37 were made. Next to it, a Talbot Lago T26, once owned by King Farouk of Egypt. There were Bugattis, Maseratis, Hispano-Suizas, cars that hadn't seen daylight since the 1950s. The cars were part of a forgotten dream. The late owner, Roger Baillon, had planned to open a museum but never completed it. The entire collection fetched over $20 million at auction, more than anyone expected. It was one of the biggest and most valuable barn finds in European history. The lost Bugatti in the Alps. In a Swiss barn just kilometers from Lake Maggiore, a breathtaking piece of automotive art sat for decades. The 1937 Bugatti Type 57S Atalante, one of only 17 ever built, was hidden under tarps and clutter. Its original owner, the 5th Earl Howe, a British racing driver and founding member of the British Racing Drivers Club. The car was eventually purchased for Dr. Harold Carr, an eccentric British surgeon in the 1950s. After a few years, he parked the Bugatti in a locked-up garage and never drove it again. When Carr passed away in 2007, the Bugatti was rediscovered, virtually untouched since 1960. Despite its dusty, neglected state, the car sold for over $4 million at auction, a mechanical and historical jewel hidden in plain sight. The muscle car time capsule in North Carolina. Muscle car fans still talk about this one. In a rural town in North Carolina, a man passed away, leaving behind an unassuming metal warehouse. When family members opened it, they found over 80 vintage muscle cars, many in pristine condition. This was not your typical barn find of rusted relics. These were showroom-ready Chevelles, GTOs, Roadrunners, Camaros, Chargers, and even rare Shelby Mustangs. Some had never even been titled or driven. Why were they there? Turns out the owner had worked in car sales and quietly purchased dozens of performance cars in the 1970s and 80s, anticipating they would become valuable. He stored them in climate-controlled secrecy. When the collection was revealed, collectors swarmed the scene. The total estimated value exceeded $3 million. Many cars sold before even hitting auctions. The Indiana Jones Ferrari horde. Some barn finds feel like treasure hunts ripped straight out of Hollywood. In a secret warehouse in the US, over a dozen rare Ferraris, including Daytonas, 308s, and a pair of 250 GTs, were discovered behind locked gates and vines. It was dubbed the Indiana Jones Ferrari horde. Many of the cars were covered in dust, others had rodents living in them. But despite the decay, their value was staggering. What made this find more captivating was the secrecy. Rumors suggest the collector had hidden the Ferraris for tax reasons, possibly international disputes, and simply walked away. Several of the cars had matching luggage, factory tools, and original documentation. The collection was quietly sold off to private buyers, but the lore remains. Enthusiasts still swap theories about the true story behind that mysterious Ferrari cave. The Porsche that didn't know it was special. Not every barn find needs a $1 million badge to be a great story. Take the case of a woman in Kansas who inherited a Porsche from her uncle. She thought it was just an old sports car from the 1960s, but when a friend looked closer, they realized it was something far rarer. A 1955 Porsche 550 Spider. Only 90 were ever built. It was the same model actor James Dean drove the day he died. This particular car had been customized and raced in local circuits before being retired to a barn in the 1970s. Nobody realized its rarity until it was cleaned up. Even in rough condition, the Porsche fetched over $4 million. A humble woman with a dusty garage and a multi-million-dollar piece of history hiding under a tarp. Jay Leno's bizarre steam car find. Jay Leno is known for his car collection, but few know one of his most remarkable acquisitions was a barn find. While scouting a forgotten warehouse in California, he stumbled upon a 1907 white Model G steam car buried in debris. Steam cars were once competitors to gasoline vehicles, but by 1910 they were obsolete. Leno's find was rare, original, and relatively complete. He restored it to working condition, and now it's one of his favorite vehicles. What made this barn find different was not just the car, but how it symbolized a lost era. Leno often drives it through Burbank to prove 100-year-old tech can still run. The Forgotten Corvette Collection. In a nondescript warehouse in New York City, a collection of classic Corvettes was discovered in 2014. Some were buried under garage bags, others obscured by construction equipment, but they weren't junk. They were showroom models from nearly every year between 1953 and 1989. This wasn't an accidental hoard. The cars were part of a promotion by VH1 in 1989, offering 36 Corvettes in 36 years as a prize. A man won them and then sold the entire collection to German artist Peter Max. Max planned to use the cars for an art project, but never did. They sat gathering dust for decades until new caretakers stepped in, restored the cars, and auctioned them off. It remains one of the most surreal and well-documented barn finds of all time. The Italian barn with 20 Ferraris and Alfa Romeos. In the Italian countryside, a real estate broker found more than he bargained for when evaluating a Via estate. In the crumbling barn behind the house were over 20 rare Italian sports cars, Ferraris, Alfa Romeos, Lancias, many from the 1960s and 70s. Among them, a Ferrari Dino 246 GT, a 1965 Alfa Romeo Giulia Sprint Speciale, and several vintage race cars. All were caked in dust, but surprisingly well preserved. The late owner had raced in the amateur circuit and simply parked the cars when he stopped driving. After his death, the family had no idea what the cars were worth. Collectors descended instantly. Some cars sold as is, others underwent full restorations. Altogether, it was a multi-million-dollar automotive resurrection. The Detroit Dungeon of Mopar Muscle. An anonymous gearhead in Detroit made headlines in 2016 when photos emerged of his dungeon of Mopar muscle. In a grimy underground storage facility, dozens of rare Plymouths and Dodges were parked tightly together. Superbirds, Hemi Cudas, Challengers, Chargers, some were one of a kind. The collector had been buying since the 1980s, focusing only on high-performance or special-order builds. Though the storage was far from ideal, damp, cramped, and unlit, the cars were mostly complete and restorable. Once the images leaked, the collector was swamped with offers. Some cars were quietly sold off, others remained hidden. But for a moment, the Mopar underground became myth come to life. The pre-war Mercedes discovered in a chicken coop. You'd never expect to find a rare Mercedes-Benz 540K Special Roadster in a chicken coop, but that's exactly what happened in Poland. The car, worth millions, had been hidden during World War II to prevent seizure by Nazi or Soviet forces. The owners disguised the vehicle, removing the emblem and covering it in sheets. Over time, it became part of the barn's background, until someone noticed the unique grille in 2005. After careful inspection and restoration, the car was confirmed as one of just a handful built before the war. It was auctioned at Pebble Beach for over $9 million. The collector's secret island. On a remote property in the Pacific Northwest, a man created his own private paradise and filled it with cars. Dozens of classics, mostly American, sat rusting among trees, sheds, and moss-covered driveways. Old Mustangs, Cadillacs, Packards, and pickup trucks from the 1940s to 70s. He had no intention of selling them. In fact, he didn't even talk about them. Only after his death did family members begin to reveal the collection's scope. There was no order, no restoration, and no showroom polish. But what made this barn find special was its intimacy. One man's lifelong love of the automobile frozen in time. The Shelby Cobra buried in hay. In a Midwest farm, a man poking through hay bales stumbled upon something unbelievable. A real 1965 Shelby Cobra 427. How'd it end up in a barn? The owner had purchased the car decades earlier, raced it briefly, then stored it in the hayloft to keep it safe from theft. Over time, it became hidden by hay and forgotten. When it was discovered, the car was dirty, but complete, with original paperwork and matching numbers. The barn had protected it like a vault. After a light restoration, it sold for $1.75 million. Barn finds are more than just luck. They're moments when the past collides with the present, when a forgotten machine gets one last chance to be remembered, restored, and reborn. These stories remind us that even in an age of digital auctions and high-tech garages, there are still treasures hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to open a door, lift a tarp, and bring history back to life.